Is Russell Wilson really back?
Unlimited.
A couple games with his third team, the Steelers, Russell Wilson is being embraced by Yinzas everywhere, praised for his perfect moon balls and injecting some life into the Steelers offense with the utilization of George Pickens' freakish talents. He's been great, but will it last? Is the new Russ the same as the old Russ? And why didn't he do this shit in Denver? Or did he? Russell Wilson's NFL career has had some incredible highs and some pretty low lows.
I think Russell Wilson is a poser.
After years of dominating with the Seattle Seahawks, Wilson wanted more control over his destiny. He watched legends like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady have major say in how their offenses were run and felt like he deserved the same. But in Seattle, despite being a Super Bowl champion, a Super Bowl almost champion, and putting up amazing numbers year after year, he felt like he was never truly the one in charge. It was Pete Carroll's show and a dominant defense at the end of the day. So he made a big move, hoping to prove he could lead an offense on his own terms. The Denver Broncos gave him a chance. They gave him everything, and it did not go the way he planned, or the way they planned, or the way I planned. We all know that. But that failure in Denver may have been exactly what Russ needed to succeed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm Brandon Perna, and you're about to get That's Good Sports. November 17th, the Broncos' only home game in all of November. Get your tickets now with the help of today's sponsor, Game Time. That's the Falcons game, and Denver already defeated every other NFC South team, so go see them complete the sweep live. Maybe you want to watch the Broncos on the road for their big games this month, or see any teams you love this season. Whether that's the NFL or NBA, I recommend using Game Time, who built a ticket marketplace that makes it faster and easier to get into your favorite events at a moment's notice. This is the best app for last-minute ticket buyers. You know who you are. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and if you find tickets in the same section in row for less money, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's not just sports either. I used Game Time to see my friend of the show, Gareth Reynolds, when he was in Denver doing comedy. I use Game Time a lot in the summer. You know, when I can leave my basement. There's a new feature called Game Time Picks that filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on your great seats. You can toggle the all-in pricing feature so you know the actual total due at checkout. I love that feature, and Game Time offers the lowest prices guaranteed. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code GOODSPORTS. Good Sports for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem with code GOODSPORTS, GOODSPORTS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. It says Game Time on my watch, I swear. Russell Wilson's time in Seattle was full of accomplishments. He threw for over 4,000 yards in 2 different seasons, regularly ranked among the league leaders in touchdown passes, and had a career passer rating north of 100. He stacked up rushing yards, and he had some of the most insane sack escapes we had seen. The Seahawks were perennial contenders largely because of his playmaking skills, but there was a catch. Seattle's head coach, Pete Carroll, loved to run the ball and play tough defense. Even in games where Russell Wilson's arm could have taken over, the offense remained pretty conservative. Sure, there were those let Russ cook moments, like his MVP caliber stretch in 2020, but Russ always felt like he could do more if he just had the freedom to run the show. Allow me to give an example. In a 2022 ESPN article, Brady Henderson wrote that Wilson was upset at Pete Carroll for taking his foot off the gas on offense, believing his coach cost him his first chance at league MVP. Remember, Russell Wilson has never received a single MVP vote. Russ stated, "I don't want to vote. I think more importantly, I want to win. Obviously, MVP is a special award. Now, Russ has a way of saying the right thing, but we all know what he really wants, and it definitely was an MVP vote. And it didn't help that Wilson saw guys like Peyton Manning calling audibles and changing plays whenever he wanted, or Tom Brady working hand in hand with coaches to design game plans. Wilson felt boxed in like a Ferrari stuck in traffic. So when the opportunity to leave Seattle came along, he took it. For the first time in his career, he got to be the ringleader. And I think that's an apt analogy because the 2022 Broncos were a complete circus.
I've really enjoyed making love to your ears.
He may actually be a worse ringleader than Mr. Barnum and Bailey himself, Aaron Rodgers. When Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos and signed a huge 5-year, $245 million contract, it looked like he was finally getting what he wanted. The Broncos handed him full control of the offense, ready to see him become the superstar leader he always wanted to be. Wilson, with his Pro Bowl experience and 2 trips to the Super Bowl, was supposed to be the final piece for a team loaded with young talent. But it did not take long for things to go off the rails. In 2022, Wilson put up career worst numbers, just 16 touchdown passes and a dismal, by his standards, 84.4 passer rating. The Broncos, of course, finished 5-12, and their offense ranked dead last in scoring, averaging a meager 16.9 points per game. Wilson's trademark deep ball accuracy had been wildly inconsistent, and he often looked uncomfortable and disconnected from his teammates. The situation got so bad that the Broncos fired head coach Nathaniel Hackett before the season even concluded. Perhaps some of you remember that. Came after Christmas, I think. And I try my best to put that in the rearview mirror. The Broncos traded for head coach Sean Payton, and we had hope. Maybe an offensive guru like Peyton could get the best out of Russell Wilson, or whatever Russ had left in the tank. In 2023, things improved slightly, but Wilson still struggled, finishing with just 3,070 passing yards and under 7 yards per attempt. Denver ended the season just 7-8 in games started by Russ, and after a public and messy divorce with the Broncos, where we learned they wanted to bench him, Sean Payton cut him loose after the season, absorbing the biggest cap hit of all time in the process. You know that shit, right? What went wrong, though? Well, Wilson finally had the freedom he wanted. Turns out that running an NFL offense isn't so easy, even for a quarterback as talented as Russ. His decision-making wasn't as sharp. The offensive line couldn't handle his style of play, and the coaching staff was constantly playing tug-of-war with his ego.
I think I have an alter ego. His name's Mr. Unlimited.
Wilson faced harsh criticism both internally and externally, and it was very clear his confidence took a massive hit.
Russell Wilson, yes indeed. My man who's looking for a job as we speak.
When Wilson's time in Denver came to an end, he had to accept a much humbler deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He signed for 1 year on the veteran minimum, and Pittsburgh wasn't about to hand him the same level of control he had in Denver. They basically hedged their bets on Russ by trading for Justin Fields around the same time. But this time, things were different. Wilson came into Pittsburgh with a different mindset, more willing to listen and adapt. He knew he had something to prove as well, and he was ready to put the team first. Something that over time we learned by accounts from former teammates Russ never really did. At least where it actually mattered behind closed doors.
Y'all didn't have a relationship outside of football?
No, there's no, it can't pick up the phone and call old boy or nothing.
Right.
Man, I want to reach out to dog, bro, because
Reach out to it.
What you mean you couldn't pick up the phone?
I don't got his number.
Oh,
man, come
his
on,
manager.
nigga. If I can't call you direct, nigga, then I ain't calling you. Especially, nigga, if I done went to war with you.
Unfortunately, Russell Wilson suffered a calf injury in training camp, which delayed his start with the Steelers by about 6 weeks. But maybe serving in that role as an inactive QB in full pads helped ease Russ into the system, observe what he should be doing when the time came. Nobody takes mental reps more seriously than Russell Wilson. He might take mental reps of taking mental reps. Now, Justin Fields had the Steelers at 4-0, and it was looking like Russ might never start. After losing to the Colts and lowly Cowboys, Mike Tomlin was ready to start the quarterback he always believed in, which is important for me to mention. Under head coach Mike Tomlin, Wilson found a system that brings out the best in him. Where did he have that system before? Oh yeah, the entire first part of his career in Seattle. The Steelers' offense in the post-Big Ben era isn't about letting one player take over. It's about balance, smart play calling, and everyone doing their job. What's changed? Well, Wilson isn't trying to prove he's the offensive mastermind anymore. Instead, he's focused on making the right reads, trusting his playmakers, and playing within Tomlin's structure with an offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith who can keep things simple and call plays to Russ's strengths. The offensive line, which has been its own worst enemy this season, has been more effective because Wilson is making quicker decisions and avoiding negative plays. Guys, Russ was not doing that last year, okay? If he made a quick decision in the passing game, it was a check down or swing pass. A swing pass check down. Najee Harris, the Steelers' top running back, is benefiting too, as defenses can't just load up against the run. His back-to-back 100-yard games with Russ are a necessity for the balance an offense needs to give Russ the time. The time to tell ground control he's gonna launch a fucking moon ball. Najee has 300-yard games in a row, but the first was, it was against the Raiders, so that one doesn't really count. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to learn what really matters. For Wilson, that meant realizing that running an NFL offense isn't just about having control, it's about working as a team and trusting the system. His Denver experience was a wake-up call. It forced him to reevaluate his approach and come back with a more grounded, team-oriented mentality. He had to buy into a team and a coach where they haven't had a losing season in over 2 decades. In Pittsburgh, he's shown that he can still be one of the league's better quarterbacks. While in Denver, Russ did not benefit from having a reliably good defense, and the run game behind him was a major disappointment. The real difference between Pittsburgh and Denver: the Steelers have a culture, they have tradition, and they have things running a certain way with Mike Tomlin. Denver had just changed coaches and ownership, and Russ came in at exactly the wrong time with the worst possible head coach / coaches for him to succeed. Even when Peyton Manning arrived, John Fox had been there a year, as well as GM John Elway, and Elway obviously spent his entire NFL career with the Broncos organization. Mike Tomlin publicly never wavered from his commitment to Russell Wilson, and Wilson won the starting quarterback job over Justin Fields, but then got sidelined with that calf injury before the season started. He missed the first 5 games, but came back as the backup in week 6. The Steelers were 4-2 at that point in the season, and Fields was playing well enough for the Steelers to have a chance in just about every game.
Justin has been really good, and we've been really good at times, but not to be confused with great. Man, this is a competitive league, man.
And it seemed preposterous that Mike Tomlin would risk their top spot in the AFC North and maybe the locker room just to see what he had in a 35-year-old Russell Wilson. Well, it turns out there was definitely something there in that 35-year-old danger witch connoisseur. When Russ finally got his chance to start in week 7, he lit it up, throwing for 264 yards and 2 touchdowns, and even ran one in. The Steelers crushed the Jets 37-15, and Wilson's performance set a record for the most passing yards by a Steelers quarterback in their debut. A week later, against the Giants on Monday night, Russ played good, safe football once again, hitting on 20 of 28 passing attempts for 278 yards and a touchdown. I think just as importantly, we saw the Steelers' run game pick up, and we really got to see what Russ could do with a competent run game for the first time since he was with the Seahawks. Since Russ put his big 10-inch hands under center in Pittsburgh, Najee Harris ran for 216 yards on 40 carries. And with that kind of ground attack, it's opened up Wilson on play-action shots down the field, where he's always thrived within an offense. Something it felt like Sean Payton did not want to do with his offense. Now, Mina Kimes, who has watched Russell Wilson his entire career as a Seahawks enthusiast, hilariously apologized to Mike Tomlin on her show.
Mike Tomlin, you were right. I was wrong. 2 games in, I can confidently say it was the correct decision to switch to Russell Wilson at quarterback. I was skeptical week 1, but it was obviously the right decision. There was a reason why. You are one of the best coaches in NFL history, and you win.
But I think also former Bronco, Dominique Foxworth was spot on when he said this about Fields.
I think we all recognize that there were things that Fields wasn't doing well, and I figured it was worth trying someone else because Fields is not hitting these open receivers. Fields was just holding onto the ball and not taking attempts that should have been there.
Now keep in mind, people were glazing Justin Fields, not because he was great, but because he looked better than he did as a handicapped member of the Chicago Bears. And make sure you subscribe to Mina's YouTube channel. Let her know I sent you over, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get her on the show for a collab. But here's the real question, and we just don't know yet. Will Russ be the answer for the rest of the season? Or even beyond for the Steelers? I have no idea. I just know watching his first 2 games that he's in the right environment to succeed. He's got the infrastructure around him to limit his mistakes and maximize what he does well. He's still taking sacks, maybe a little too frequently, but he's not throwing picks, and he's got chemistry with George Pickens. And that's going to win you a lot of games with the second best scoring defense in the NFL. And not to mention, the Steelers added a piece on defense to make that even better and gave Russell Wilson another weapon in Mike Williams through the trade deadline. Russ's fumble in the fourth quarter against the Giants was a little too Russ-like for me to fully let go. He had similar issues in Denver, essentially costing the team a win against the lowly Jets, and he threw a terrible pick in the end zone to start the game against the Patriots. He orchestrated an incredible comeback that fell short against New England, but he was a big part of the reason Denver was in a hole in that game. If this Steelers offense hits a wall, it will be on Russ. He's got a better support system, but there's no more excuses if it goes wrong. There won't be a narrative of the big, bad Sean Payton not believing in him. And that's what remains for Russell Wilson to prove on his own. That fumble against the Jets essentially cost the Broncos a playoff spot last year, and ultimately Russ's job. The main thing that I've taken away from watching this unfold is that Russell Wilson probably, like a lot of guys in the NFL, bit off more than he could chew. Russ wanted to be the sheriff, the man, the guy in the office, but that's not where he's best. He's at his best in a ground control offense with a few play-action passes and deep shots down the field. He's never going to scan the field and pick you apart like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. He's never been and will never be that guy, and that's okay. He still cannot throw to the middle of the field, but he made a living not doing that for a decade in the Pacific Northwest. He has the same flaws he's always had. He simply doesn't have the elusiveness to make up for it when a play breaks down. What bothers me, though, is people thinking Russell Wilson wasn't making some insane throws while with the Broncos. Our brains latch onto a singular narrative because that's all it has room for. You either believe Russ was horrible and that's why he was cut, or Sean Payton is a giant asshole and that's why Russ got cut. All of the nuance in between gets left out. Russ was flawed, but I will never forget this throw to Cortland Sutton in the Buffalo Bills game, or this game-winning throw against the Vikings just a week later. This is a very similar throw that Patrick Mahomes just made to DeAndre Hopkins, and nobody gave 2 fucks that Russ hit this one, because Sean Payton yelling at him on the sideline is what you're going to remember. Also, in a must-win game, Russ throws this horrible pick to seal the deal for the Texans on 3rd down. Every bit of good Russ did for the Broncos was marred by a mistake or something even more memorable. You have to commend Mike Tomlin, though, for buying low on Russ and having the massive sack to start him even when the team was playing good football, because Russ almost assuredly raises their ceiling above where Justin Fields had it through 6 games. Denver just didn't have the setup to make the most of Russell Wilson's talents, and I don't think Russ was ready to accept failure in Denver until they yanked him off the stage last year. It would have taken a lot longer to build what they have in Pittsburgh, and during that time, they'd still be paying a fortune for a quarterback they couldn't properly support, and that their extremely expensive head coach clearly did not want. Speaking of that massive contract, Denver couldn't afford to keep dragging it along. Wilson's deal was a financial anchor, and if they wanted to turn the franchise around, they needed to rip off the Band-Aid, eat the money, and move forward. Painful Absolutely. Necessary without a doubt. The sooner they got out from under that behemoth of a contract, the sooner they could start building a team that actually makes sense and has a strong outlook, not just for this year, but for the next half decade if they do things right this offseason. After seeing Russ play very well in prime time, do the Broncos have regret? Do Broncos fans have seller's remorse? No, because Denver committed to a rebuild. The rookie quarterback they drafted, while not perfect, has shown a lot of promise. He's outplaying Caleb Williams right now. Bo Nix looked like a deer in the headlights through the first 2 weeks, but won Rookie of the Month in October and has shown a ton of flashes, even with an offense that's almost entirely bereft of playmakers at receiver. Denver's gotten a little lucky with some of those ahead-of-schedule wins. Even after a tough loss to the Ravens, Denver is hanging around the playoff race, something fans haven't seen since they won the Super Bowl back in 2015. Considering how bleak things looked not too long ago, that's a pretty big deal for us, okay? Sometimes, if you let's ride something, you have to let it gas up in another city. And I really am having fun watching Bo Nix start to click, even if his deep ball is light years away from being on the same level as Russ. Denver had to do what was right for them. And what was right for them ended up also being very right for Russell Wilson. He's on a first-place team and a playoff win away from getting another contract. He's an unrestricted free agent this offseason, and if another team pays him, it will make the Broncos look less dumb for paying him $250 million in 2022. Incompetent for how they handled him, sure, but at least we can say Russ still had some water in the back of his 12 toilets. If Russ keeps playing within himself, the Steelers will be welding in January. Denver made a somewhat unprecedented hard decision, and it's paying off faster than anyone expected for both sides. It's not a perfect situation, but it's definitely progress. And if this season ends up with a playoff berth, I think we can all officially agree to forget 2022 and 2023 ever happened here in Denver. And fuck you, at least we didn't trade for Deshaun Watson, huh? And if the football gods want to smile upon us, we will get a Broncos-Steelers postseason game for the Russell Wilson rubber match. Thanks for watching That's Good Sports. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a good old-fashioned thumbs up. Does YouTube still like likes? Do you like likes, YouTube? I like them. Makes me feel better about myself.